Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Southwest Virginia fishing report with Matt Reilly. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great, Marvin. Just watching the rain come down.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say you may have to build an ark in Abingdon.
Yeah, I think all the rain that we should have been getting the last couple months is all coming down right now. They're calling for about 1.5 inches in Abingdon today, and we had and have about 1/4 of an inch projected every day earlier this week, all the way through sort of the beginning of next week. So probably won't get all of it, but we're certainly going to get a lot. So we'll just have to see how things shake out.
Yeah, and so, it looks like fishing is going to be kind of messed up a little bit, right?
A little bit. We'll have to, run around. We've got some options. Weirdly enough, we haven't had rain in so long that I think a lot of the rain that we've had earlier this week and even right now is kind of just soaking into the ground a little bit. Some of the smaller watersheds have barely reacted at all. So it'll kind of just depend on what, probably more than anything, what happens tonight, the night we're recording this.
Yeah, and so just so folks know, we're recording on the 17th. We'll see it's Tuesday, and I guess the trick is if you get a lot of water but you're still able to fish, I imagine, right, it's going to probably, put the fish on structure a little bit more.
Yeah, certainly. If we have water coming up, our smallmouth fishing will just be, on average, a lot closer to the bank.
Yeah, and they'll also, they won't look up as much, right? And you've had a bait fish bite more than a topwater bite anyway this season too, right?
That's true to a certain degree. Still a lot of our big fish have come from sight fishing opportunities that we've had with topwater bugs. And a lot of it just has to do with water clarity more than anything. We're low to average in terms of summertime flows right now on the news. So if things come up a little bit, we're running right around 2,000 cubic feet, or at least we were, yesterday and the day before. So even if it comes up to 5,000, 6,000 cubic feet, still very fishable. If it's not dirty, topwater is still very viable. As long as you're relatively close to the bank and making a good splat to get those fish's attention. I think actually last September, I had a friend of ours, Scott Smith, from down in Charlotte. We were out fishing, and it was running about 6,000 cubic feet, and he caught 21.5-inch fish on a topwater bug in the afternoon. So it's definitely still viable. But yeah, on average, we've been doing a lot more streamer fishing throughout the summer than we typically do on the new. So it's probably, like I've been saying this summer, if you're fishing topwater and not getting the reaction you think you should, I wouldn't waste any time going subsurface.
Yeah, absolutely. And interesting question came in over Instagram. And the listener, I don't have his real name, just have his avatar, so I'll just give you the question. He wanted to know how the dam release schedule affects the bite on the lower New River.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to start by saying there is no schedule. It's just kind of what the those in control up at Slater Dam want to do day in and day out, how they're generating power, how they're, dealing with water coming into the lake, and controlling the water level there. But generally speaking, I'll say, smallmouth really do prefer, stable water. The ups and downs, day to day are frustrating for the angler, but for the fish as well. They just they never have time to set up anywhere and get comfortable. And so if I had my choice, I'd be fishing stable water every day. Now, the last couple of years, that hasn't been reality. It hasn't been possible very often. So you are sort of left with the choice between rising and falling water. Rising water, I prefer to falling water just because, with just about any kind of river fishing, rising water in, especially in heavy amounts, tends to push fish to the bank rather than sort of pull them off the structure and sort of have them positioned more nebulously and moving around in the middle of the river. So if you can watch the release pattern at Radford and see that it's coming up, then it's a good time to get out there as long as you're in the piece of river where the water's coming up. And there's some if you spend a lot of time on the river, you can kind of have a good idea of how long it takes for that kind of water to get to the different access points, because there's probably 80 or 90 miles of river below Radford. So it takes about a whole day for it to get from Radford down to the West Virginia line. So depending on when during the day they make a stream flow adjustment, dropping the water level or rising the water level, that kind of dictates where on the river that bump or drop of water is going to be the next day. And like I said, there's a formula out there somewhere. It used to be posted at one of the boat ramps. I haven't seen it this year, but tell you how to kind of do some math to optimize the situation that way. The only time when I will avoid a rise in water is one if it's just really large, so say the river's running 3,000 cubic feet and then all of a sudden Radford is at 10,000. You can still go down a good ways on the river and fish a whole day and not see that water. Again, depending on when it was bumped up. Also, if you've had stable water for, a week or several days, and then there's a big bump, even then, I still kind of prefer the stable water. So I'll try to find a piece of river that bump hasn't gotten to yet. So that's kind of what I do. It's frustrating and it's a little bit complicated, even if you do it every day. So if it feels overwhelming, I say just kind of ignore it sometimes. I mean, especially these days, certain times a year, and certainly last year and the year before, that water was up and down, sometimes a couple times a day for the whole year. So it is frustrating, but that's what I do.
Yeah, and just so folks know, there are really kind of two things going on. One, I assume they're generating for peak power in the summer, right? And then the other thing they're doing is, if you get a lot of rain like you're getting ready to get, they've got to basically make sure they've got enough room upstream to hold the water. Yeah,
and that's another good point. What'll happen, and actually what's happening right now, you can go and look at it, is the GALAC, Ivanhoe and Allisonia gauges have come up in the last day or two, but they haven't come up a ton. But what they'll do there at Radford is, if it's running 3,000 cubic feet and we're projected to get 2 inches of rain on Thursday or Friday, Tuesday or Wednesday, they may jack up the flow at Radford just to kind of make some room in the lake for that water coming down. Even though it hasn't happened yet, sometimes the water happens, sometimes it doesn't, and then they'll cut the flow way back right after they've pushed a lot downriver. So that happens. And then again, we had a situation a week or two ago where they were, it's been a month or more since we've really had any kind of significant rain, and they'd been running, almost twice as much water out of Radford as they had coming in up at Allisonia, and they did that for weeks. And so when you see that happening, you can kind of start to anticipate a big drop, because at some point, you can't let go of more water than you got coming in for too long, or else you end up with a dry lake. So yeah, that's the thing to pay attention to too, for sure.
Yeah, and I guess really kind of the shortcut, if there is such a thing, is to probably look at the USGS gauge probably upstream of you, right? And look for fluctuations in CFS, and then they'll actually have a gauge on it too, so you can see what the water level's doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, folks, we love questions at the Articulate Fly. You can email them to us, or you can send them to us on our Facebook or Instagram page. And if we use your question, I'll send you some Articulate Fly swag, and we'll enter in a drawing for something cool for Matt at the end of the season. And like I always do, Matt, have to ask you what you're writing for the Rural Virginian this week.
Yeah, I put out a article, or it's coming out this week, about the upper Shenandoah River watershed. Right now, again, they're getting some rain now too, but starting a couple of weeks ago, they were dealing with a fairly serious blue-green algae bloom on the upper end of the North Fork of the Shenandoah, and potentially on the upper end of the South Fork. It never, as far as I know, it never really bloomed on the South Fork, but the conditions and everything were ripe for it. So it's just kind of an explanation of that, kind of a PSA, as that kind of algae can be dangerous health-wise to people and pets. And a lot of people are out on the river this summer, so I felt that was necessary. And hopefully, they get enough rain right now to kind of, cool that water down a little bit, raise the water level a little bit, kill that bloom that's happening.
Well, there you go. And I'll drop a link to that in the show notes. And, folks, we'll have to watch the water. And if you do get out, do be safe. But if you can, you owe it to yourself to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Matt.
All right. Thanks, Marvin.